For as long as I can remember, I've wanted to make my own games. I grew up experimenting with various programs and game engines. I made mods for games like Warcraft 3 and Morrowind, and spent hours drawing my own characters, maps, and dreaming up entire worlds that I wanted to explore through the medium of video games. As I got older, I got more into talking about and critiquing games. Those interests eventually motivated me to study media in college, and I've been lucky enough to spend the past 5 years writing about and podcasting about video games professionally for some of the biggest publications out there. I'm proud of where my career has gone so far, but I've never lost my passion for game design and the dream of one day creating my own games. So, in December of 2016, I dove back into game design. At first, just as a hobby behind the scenes, but a little over 3 years later, in early 2020, I shipped my very first commercial game, Super Mutant Slayers, a cooperative tabletop card game based on some of my favorite video game franchises, stuff like Monster Hunter, Phantasy Star Online, and Diablo. My goal was to capture the feeling of hunting giant monsters, scoring loot, and crafting powerful weapons with your friends. It took me 3 years to design and illustrate the game myself, plus plenty of playtesting with my friends and family along the way, to get it to a playable state. But I'm proud of what I made, even if the game has only been downloaded by a few dozen people so far. I learned a lot about game design during Super Mutant Slayer's development, but the most important lesson was this. You have to be proactive about marketing and promoting your game if you want people to play it. So, now that my next game is now in development, this time a video game, I've decided to start a new series here on my YouTube channel. This is The Crawl, a series about game design and development. I'll be dissecting the titles that inspire me to see what makes them tick, and sharing progress reports as I create my own games and the lessons I learn along the way. Okay, so why am I calling this series The Crawl? Well, there's actually a couple reasons behind the name. First, it's an allusion to dungeon crawling and exploration, which are core concepts to my new video game project. In fact, almost all of my favorite games are about exploration, atmosphere, and the joy of getting lost. Whether that be old school dungeon crawlers, Metroidvania games, roguelikes, or even specific series like The Legend of Zelda, Dark Souls, and Diablo. I plan to talk about many of these games and the ways they've inspired my own project. If you see my Breath of the Wild design philosophy video, you can expect stuff more in that vein going forward. The other reason I decided to call this series The Crawl was because it's a direct reference to the game development process itself. Making games is hard work, and it can be slow. Even the simplest titles can take well over a year to create and refine, and the biggest AAA games can take 2, 3, 5, or more years to finish. While I've been working on my new dungeon crawler inspired game for about 6 months now, it's still in the early phases of development. Here's some very, very early footage of the game, like pre-alpha prototyping stage, just to give you an idea of what I'm going for and at what stage the development is currently at. After my experiences with Super Mutant Slayers, and not to mention numerous failed projects that have never been seen by the public, I know full well this project will take a long time to develop, hence why I'm calling this series The Crawl. Still, I'm hoping that sharing my progress on the game and interacting with those of you who follow along will cultivate more interest about the game out there and help maintain my own enthusiasm as I work towards finishing it, however long that happens to take. For those of you who have been subscribed to this channel for the past several months, thank you so much. While this is a slightly new direction for the channel, I hope you stick around. I'll still be talking about games and streaming games, I'll just be doing so from a slightly different perspective, one that is more in line with my creative goals and that I find more interesting and fulfilling, frankly. And hey, you can keep hearing my thoughts on the latest games and announcements on the PNB podcast every week, and catch me and the other PNB hosts streaming live on Twitch. If you're new here and you want to follow along with my development progress, please subscribe so you can get all my future videos. Lastly, for those of you who are interested in discussing any of these topics with me or others, or if you're a fellow indie developer looking for a community to talk about and get feedback on your own games, head over to The Crawl's new official Discord server. Links are in the description box down below. I'll be posting occasional smaller updates in the Discord separate from what I post here on YouTube, so be sure to join if you're interested in more in-depth discussions and development updates. Alright, that's all for now, friends, but stay tuned. The first official episode of The Crawl is just a few days away. And in that episode, I'll talk more about some of the games that inspired me to try making my own dungeon crawler in the first place.